Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Cincinnati Preschool Promise 2022-2023 Attendance Webinar. Tonight, the introduction of the team, you have myself, Florence Malone. I am the Outreach and Enrollment Manager. We also have Brandy Harris. Brandy is the Metric Supervisor and helping us, assisting us. We also have our Senior Admin, Tanya Duvall. So thank you guys for giving us your time. So I want to talk about the highlights of the attendance policy. So as some of you all may or not be familiar with the attendance policy, there's some key bullet points that we want to hit tonight. One of the points being if a child misses more than 25% of scheduled days in a month, we ask for a brief reason. If the child misses more than 25% scheduled days in 3 or more months for non-excused reasons, the payment will be prorated to reflect the share of actual days attended. Now, it does not matter when the 3 months occur. It's a 3-month period of unexcused absence. So in other words, if little Johnny was absent in January and they were unexcused, and then we got down to, let's say, April and it was unexcused, and then we got down to, let's say, May and it was unexcused, that's 3 months for us. And so that is considered to be an unexcused. I do apologize, guys. Somebody was at my door and I had a active fur baby here, so I apologize for that. Also, just want to remind you guys that the centers are responsible for reporting closures. Closures must be reported to myself or to Brandy over at Metrics. And when we say closures, meaning like if you had a water leak or anything like that, if you have a COVID exposure, please let us know. No payments will be made for children who attend 0 scheduled days in a given month. So in other words, if the child is not there any of those days, we are not able to pay. But I also want to add in, which a lot of people or providers don't realize, in order to be paid for a child must sit in a seat for at least 5 days. So in other words, if you enroll a student in your program and he attends, and let's say mom attends for 2 days, and then for some reason decides this isn't working for me, or she loses her job and decides, hey, I'm not going to bring my child back, we will not pay for that child. So the child must sit in the seat for 5 days prior to us making payment for the child. The other thing is the attendance form must be submitted no later than 30 days after the due date to receive payment. Attendance forms submitted after 30 days are subject to non-payment. Really, it's at the discretion of CPP, Cincinnati Preschool Promise. Next screen, please. I am now going to turn it over to Brandy Harris.
Thank you, Flo, and good evening. Just wanted to, as Flo mentioned, the highlights of the attendance policy. Want to just go over the absent documentation sheet. This sheet, you want to fill it out when you do have those children who miss more than 25% scheduled days. It's very important that we have this sheet with your attendance. If this sheet does not come with your attendance when you submit it to us, then those kids will automatically fall into that category of being flagged for poor attendance. My office will reach out to you, ask you for it. If we don't get it, then as I mentioned before, those kids will be flagged for poor attendance. So it's really important that you send that form only when those kids miss more than 25%. If you have kids who fall in that category and they less than 25%, then you do not need to submit this form. If you want to submit it, that's fine, but it's only for those kids who miss more than 25% of their attendance. And you want to do this per child, and you do want to include the total absent days, and then you want to break out of what was excused, what was unexcused, and then the reason. And so just be mindful that the reasons are the illness, medical condition of a child, CPS winter break, spring break, and death in the family. And as Flo mentioned, closures that you may have, you want to include that on your absence sheet as well. Tanya, if you can go to the next sheet, please. There was a, Tanya, you didn't have the, do you have the attendance sheet?
Yes, give me just a second. I'll pull it up.
Okay. Just 1 second. I kind of wanted to just go over. Okay. So I really did this attendance sheet really based off the month of March. And only reason why is because I know CPS spring break fell this year towards the end of March. And I had a little bit where some providers were including the full 5 days, which I know April 1st was part of that spring break. And so I just want to talk a little bit about how to fill out your attendance sheet. And this includes for closures as well for your center. So when you're having spring break, winter break, you want to include your scheduled days that your center was open. So that means if your center is open during the whole entire month of March, you have to count those days for those kids, even if they don't come and they stayed at home during that spring break. So just the example would be if we look at John Doe, he's scheduled for 5 days. He started March 1st, but I updated his start date to March 7th. He only had a possible of 19 days, but he missed 4 because he was out for CPS spring break. So you still want to include the 19 days. You can't do 15 out of 15 and then say he was out for spring break. Your center was open during that time, so you were not closed. So you would have to include the full day, every day that your center was open for that month. You're just going to document for that kid when they missed those days because they were out for CPS spring break. April 1st, I can't include it in your March attendance. So that's something that you would have to make note of to include that day missed when you submit your April attendance. So that was just a few things that we noticed when March attendance was returned to us. They were including the full 5 days of CPS spring break. I get it, but I could only include 4 days because those 4 days fell in March, and you would have to include that 5th day for April when you do your April attendance. And then also, so just keep that in mind, you want to do a full month for your center if your center was open the whole entire month. So if you look at this particular kid, Gina Davis, approved on March 1st, your center was open for exactly 23 days. She missed 4 days because of CPS spring break. This is how your attendance should look. And the same would go with state closures. You want to include those. So if your center was closed due to the state closure for 2 weeks, include those the whole entire month, but then you're going to give me the breakdown of those 2 weeks that why you were closed so we could count those, and those children will be marked for excused absence. So it's just a matter of just putting that on the absence sheet. As you notice, those kids though, when they miss those days, they didn't fall into that 25% or more category. So you wouldn't have to do the absence sheet, but if you want to, you definitely can fill it out for these kids and just put a note just saying they were out due to CPS spring break and the 4 days. And we definitely will document that. Those kids wouldn't be flagged. I could definitely tell you that because they're less than the 25%. And then also just a quick reminder, when you have children who were approved for that prior month and they decided that they're not going to start to the next month, just go ahead and update that for the next month with the first of the next month, and make sure you just put 0. If you put 0 out of 9, that's fine, or just 0 out of 0, that is fine as well. And then you can also put it at the bottom as well. The other thing I really would like to, just a friendly reminder, every month we seem to email providers asking for their total preschool enrollment number. It is very important that we have that information. So if we really need for you to include that information on your attendance of your total preschool number enrollment. And it does not have to just be CPP kids. We want to know your total preschool enrollment numbers of children that you have enrolled. And then as well as your seats, any open seats that you have available. If you don't have any, put 0. If you have any, but you're not enrolling, just list that. I have 5 open seats, but I'm not enrolling at this time. That is fine. But this is very important information that we need to have from you all every single month. And I noticed that that seemed to be missing from a lot of providers as we do attendance. So please make sure that you're including that information on your attendance sheets as well. And then it's very important, the due date. Please make sure that your attendance is turned in and submitted by the due date. If you are having any issues with getting your attendance in, submitting it in a timely manner, please reach out to myself or Florence and just say, hey, a family emergency came up, something came up, I can't get it in. Do I have time to get it in still? Just the communication, just the email or a phone call, just to let us know that you're having issues with getting your attendance in by the due date, because we definitely want to work with you and try to get your attendance in a timely manner. So just let us know if you're running into an issue. Also, if your attendance is returned back to you for corrections, please correct your attendance and send and return it to us as soon as possible, definitely before the due date. So if you're getting an email that there's some corrections needed, if you're not sure, just call, but definitely you want to try to make those corrections as soon as possible and get that information back to us as soon as possible. So the 5th is the day that the attendance is due pretty much every month, give or take what the 5th falls on. If it's a weekend, then it's due that Monday. So we really want you to get your attendance in by the due date. If, like I said, if you're having issues or any problems with getting your attendance in, just give us a call, just email us. But really, this is an example of how your attendance should look, should be filled out. And then also keep in mind with your attendance, please do not manipulate the attendance at all. So if there's dates there, or if there isn't dates there, especially in column F. So when you get your attendance moving forward, after you submitted applications for your kids and you don't see any dates, you do not have to put dates there. Just know that those kids have already been approved and you're giving them the entire month. So you don't have to put anything in column F after your kids have already been approved for preschool promise. So you don't have to manipulate. So we ask you, please do not manipulate anything that you see on this attendance, with the exception of updating in column G, H, I, and J. So those are the only areas that you can update information. If you need to update, please use the note section down at the bottom and you can put information there, or you can even put it in the body of the email. But everything in A through F, please let it be and do not manipulate that information. Flo, is there anything you think I forgot in regards to attendance?
No, the only thing that I want to just reiterate is that, one, as you said, it's important that we have that information. Let us know if you do not want, if you're not enrolling children at this particular time. When you give us the information, because people do call us and they ask, like, hey, does this center, are they accepting children, different agencies and everything. So, make sure to highlight whether you are accepting children, if you're not accepting children. And then also just to make note that the ELS attendance program or rules and regulations are different than what the regular tuition assistance program is, because it's a shorter amount of time, and it's just on a different schedule. So with the ELS program, it's actually 3 days per month. Just because that program itself is only a 12-week program. It might not even be 12 weeks. I think it's 10 weeks. And so I just want to make note that to you guys, so you don't think that those months concur with the tuition assistance months. Tuition assistance, the last day is May 31st. From that time, we will switch over to ELS, extended learning session, and it will be a new attendance policy for that particular program. And so I do just want to make sure that we note that. And if anybody has any questions, please raise your hand. Okay, so if there are no questions, that's pretty much it for us. We just wanted to go over the attendance rules and policy. And if you know some providers who are asking you a question about attendance, please let them know that this video will be on our website so they can watch. That's pretty much it. Other than that, have a great evening.
Have a good evening.